Well, welcome, folks, in the news. Why did Trump walk out of the meeting with Kim Jong-un? The next thing is the Prime Minister of Israel going to be indicted. We've got that story. And what about Cohen? Did he lie about Jay Sekulow? We'll try to clarify that. And, well, it's an interesting program. Lots of news today.
Right. We're going to talk about that as well. Well, the breaking point in that Hanoi summit came when Kim Jong-un demanded that the U.S. lift all economic sanctions, but stopped short of promising to get rid of all nukes. Jenna Browder reports from Washington.
No deal for President Trump and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. Still, the White House says the talks were constructive and very good.
Sometimes you have to walk. And this was just one of those times.
Talks were cut short. Both leaders departed, and this news conference moved up 2 hours.
It was about the sanctions.
Will there be a third summit, Mr. President?
Basically, they wanted the sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we couldn't do that.
The president hoped Kim would commit to scrapping his entire nuclear program and weapons. And earlier in the day, it seemed that was possible. In a rare scene, Kim interacting with American reporters who shouted questions at the two leaders. Kim was asked if he was ready to denuclearize. Through a translator, he said, "If I'm not willing to do that, I wouldn't be here right now."
Good answer. Wow, that might be the best answer you've ever heard.
But in the end, the North Koreans wanted too much for too little. The lifting of all sanctions, but no commitment to getting rid of all its nukes. Even without a deal, though, the summit appears to have ended on a positive note.
I want to say I have great respect for Chairman Kim, and I have great respect for his country.
And going into the summit, President Trump stressed the importance of taking the time to get the right deal. And right now, while there are no talks of a third summit, he says he's hopeful the negotiating teams will meet again soon. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
You remember Reykjavik, the two superpowers were ready to have a major arms reduction deal, and President Ronald Reagan didn't want to give up what was called Star Wars, and he and Gorbachev met in Reykjavik, and Reagan walked out. And it turned out that it was the right decision because before long, Glasnost came and the Soviet Union fell. So it was the right move, but it sounds like shades of Reykjavik we're dealing with right now. Well, in other news, the convicted criminal went before Congress Wednesday, and he called the president a racist, a con man, and a cheat. Whew. John Jessup has more.
That's right, Pat. Republicans pounced on the testimony of Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, because he's convicted of lying to Congress. Still, Cohen told lawmakers Trump's desire to win would have him work with anyone, but he couldn't confirm Trump colluded with Russia in the 2016 election. CBN's White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has the details.
In his prepared statement, which had been leaked in media outlets, Cohen called President Trump a cheat and a con man. Congressional Republicans pounced and focused their questioning on Cohen's credibility, given his conviction for lying to Congress. But the commander-in-chief's former fixer and personal lawyer maintained he will let Americans decide who is telling the truth.
I am here under oath to correct the record.
Michael Cohen's explosive testimony clearly showed intent to damage his former boss, President Trump.
I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
The former fixer accused the commander-in-chief of criminal conduct while in office and disclosed a reimbursement check from then-President Trump Cohen claimed was for hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels.
He asked me to pay off an adult film star with whom he had an affair and to lie about it to his wife, which I did. And lying to the First Lady is one of my biggest regrets.
And a major accusation that the president had prior knowledge of the 2016 WikiLeaks email dump that hurt Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Cohen stopped short connecting Trump to Russia collusion.
Questions have been raised about whether I know of direct evidence that Mr. Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia. I do not.
On Faith Nation, CBN's chief political analyst David Brody said Cohen's remarks contradict emails and phone calls he's received from Cohen over the years.
He's brass knuckles. He is the fixer. I've known him for 8 years.
probably dozens and dozens of emails throughout those times. I want to read you one that he sent me. This was a quote about Donald Trump when I was asking him about his character. And this is what he said, quote, "I believe that Donald Trump might possibly be mentally and emotionally the strongest human being I've ever met. The level of hatred by detractors, media pundits, and others would totally overwhelm and cripple others, not him. His convictions are so steadfast and purposeful that he dismisses the negativity so that he can create positive results for all Americans and deliver on his mantra to make America great again." And so, look, this is Michael Cohen in an email to me on August 28, 2000.
It's a ringing endorsement.
Yeah, and 2017. This was not 8 years ago. This was just recently, and now he's singing a different tune because he's going to prison.
Republicans pointed at Cohen's own past to punch holes in his testimony. Cohen faces 3 years in prison after pleading guilty to breaking campaign finance laws and for previously lying to Congress.
First announced witness for the 116th Congress is a guy who is going to prison in 2 months for lying to Congress.
Now President Trump fired back from Vietnam.
But I think having a fake hearing like that and having it in the middle of this very important summit is really a terrible thing.
Cohen said he never asked for a pardon from President Trump and would not accept one if offered. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, Ben. Pat, explosive testimony, but people on the right and the left both say not much new out of his testimony.
I think so, but you know the thing is, he mentioned Jay Sekulow, and that Jay had gotten Trump to tone down some of the rhetoric he was making in some statement. And Jay just, told me over the phone, and he also told the New York Times that was an absolute lie. So you're looking at somebody who I know personally, and this was one more example of this man not telling the truth. And David Brody pointed it out. It's not a good thing. Well, our friend Bibi Netanyahu is in the crosshairs over in Israel, and let's go back to John for that.
That's right, Pat. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may be slapped with multiple indictments. The Attorney General is expected to make an announcement today whether to proceed on charges related to 3 ongoing investigations. In the most serious case, Netanyahu is accused of firing the director of Israel's communications ministry in exchange for favorable coverage on a top news site. This comes as Netanyahu is in a political fight facing elections in April. Currently, the polls are so close that if his Likud party loses only a few seats, it could turn the tide of the election against him. Well, for more on this, let's go back over to Pat.
Now, this is such an important story that I wanted to make sure that we got Chris Mitchell in on it. Joining us now from Jerusalem is our Middle East Bureau, Chris Mitchell. Chris, tell me what this means for the Netanyahu's political future.
Well, he's in for the political fight of his life, Pat. I talked to a major pollster not too long ago. He said the battle is on, and that was when the Blue and White Party was formed just a few days ago by retired General Benny Gantz and another Israeli politician, Yair Lapid. And right there, they actually had more votes than Netanyahu's Likud party. And it all comes down to the numbers, Pat. At that time, it was 36 to 29 for the Blue and White to Likud. Now, if the indictments come out, a recent poll said it would be 44 to 25. And what this does, if the indictments do come out, and we're expecting it probably any hour today, it will shift the political landscape to the left. And it might be that if the election results as it is today in the recent polls, Netanyahu would not be able to form a government. And it may be up to the Blue and White Party and retired General Benny Gantz, who you interviewed a little over 12 years ago on the Israeli border up in Lebanon after the 2006 Second Lebanon War.
I consider Benny a good friend. He was a brigadier general. He was in charge of the Northern Command. Now he's a retired chief of staff. Look, why do the Israelis want to consume their leaders? Well, what goes on in their minds on a thing like this?
It's a good question, Pat, and I think a lot of people over here think that Israel has its own version of the deep state. You could look at the left, you could look at the media and the police, or maybe the Justice Department, trying to unseat an elected official right now. It remains to be seen if Netanyahu doesn't win, if there's any other leader of his stature to be able to, be on the world stage. For example, just yesterday, he was up in Moscow negotiating with Vladimir Putin about the ability of Israel to push back Iran's military presence presence inside Syria. So it seems to be a coordinated effort, according to some people here, of Israel's deep state trying to undermine Netanyahu. It's really something they've been trying to do for years. We'll see what happens with these possible indictments and what impact it's going to have on the elections on April 9th.
Chris, thank you so much. And I'm saddened because Bibi's a dear friend. Well, of course, Benny Gantz I consider a friend, too. It's been a few years, but we traveled together up into that territory. We each were flying helicopters, and we went down to the Hula Valley, and we had some interesting times together. So Benny's a good guy, but I don't understand. I'm a close friend of Bibi Netanyahu. I met him years after his brother was killed in that Entebbe raid, and you know, he was a war hero, and Bibi was then studying in the United States. But in any event, I'm saddened to see this so-called deep state trying to take out important figures in the government.